video. If you guys would like to chime in and talk to Bill, it'd be fine.
Hi, Bill. This is Roland Bryan, one of your video engineers. If you can look at your third feed, I'm going to change that high pack to a second camera that we've got on the vehicle. This is a little bit of a side profile, so this might help you to determine the depth from the grid. So you can see the top one is the actual ROV straight on shot, and then the one below that is a pilot cam.
Yeah, this is fantastic. This is probably a silly question, but we can record both of these views simultaneously at whatever frame rate.
Yeah, we have the
frames a second.
what you're referring to is actually our shutter speed. We increase the shutter speed in order to capture the bubbles as to reduce the smearing effect. But with the pilot camera, we don't have that ability. It's it just doesn't have the capabilities as the main HD. So the one that looks a little more whitish yellow has less capabilities.
Roland, it's Jamie. Are we normally shooting 30 frames a second? Is that right?
It's always 30 frames a second. It's the shutter speed that makes the difference. And when we really try to slow down the action, we'll try to crank it up to around 1,000 to as much as 2,000 shutter. But what that does, that reduces our light, so we can only go as much as we have light for it.
Right. Fair enough.
And I give a simulation with that if the pilot's okay with that now. Pilot, can I enable your shutters just so science can see the difference as we enable the shutters? Okay, so I'm going to go into my shutter settings now and start turning the shutters on. You'll see as I increase the shutter speed, the light level will drop. So that's a shutter speed of 100. 120, 250, 500, 1000. Now in conjunction with that, I would increase my gain of the image. So we were running at +6. This is +9. So at this setting, this will give you individual bubbles to be able to discern the differences between them. I hope that helps to explain things without getting into too much technical details.
Hey, Roland. No, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you for demonstrating that for us. I have a question about what lights we're currently using. Do we have just the blue light on right now, or do we also have the HMIs?
No, we also have the HDMIs on from above. So we have one on the left, one on the right, and then we have the blue LED coming from the left. On deck, the blue light was adjusted so that the brightest portion of it was centered on the chart to get it as evenly dispersed as possible. Of course, with the HMIs, you see that's more washed out, but we're also expecting that the bulk of the light is actually going to be in the bubble stream itself.
Okay, yep, that makes perfect sense. Thank you. Jamie, I'm not seeing real-time data feed to the pigeon chat from the ROVs. Is that up and running now, or is that something that we plan on running today?
I have it, so it is working. I have it, Roland. Seems to be updating for me. Yeah, there's the seafloor. This is an area of the seafloor we examined closely yesterday en route to finding our concentrated bubble stream. A lot of dead mussel shells. Saw tube worms, we saw crabs, a lot of mussels, patches of living mussels, but a lot of dead ones. We have a comment from Eric Cordes that this is a huge mussel bed, one of the largest that he's seen in the Gulf. That was certainly the comment that I overheard from Tim Shank and company last during leg 2 when they saw this mussel bed. We've got a mix, as Aaron has just said, we've got a mix of both live and dead mussels here.
Yeah, Eric, I don't doubt that there is Bathymodeolus brooksii here. I thought perhaps sometimes I saw a few really thin shells, maybe Heckerei. Yeah.
This is the Okeanos Explorer Watch Lead. We are on the seafloor on the southern flank of Pascagoula Dome. We are scanning across a very, very large mussel bed. There are also crabs and snails here. We are en route to a concentrated flow of bubbles that we captured gas at successfully yesterday during dive 4, and then we'll be doing a visual census of sizes and rates of bubble escape using a grid that you can see in the top of your little Herc view now. Once we identify this seep again, we're some distance south of it at the moment. This is the Okeanos Explorer. No, I don't think so. I think Eric Cordes at Temple would just like to get a closer view. That looks like a mix of live and dead mussels in front of us. Let us know, Eric, if this works for you. Let's come in a little tighter. If we can come in a little tighter, that'd be great. It looks like a mix of live mussels there. Yeah, very nice.
I think, Eric, that some of those snails do look like childresi, as you said.
And those are the small white snails interspersed with the mussels?
So Bathymodeolus childresi is another species of mussels, but
okay.
he says that the snails look like Cantranier? I'd never heard of that one, actually.
Yeah, that's excellent. We can just spend half a minute here or so.
Please pardon the interruption. Your conference contains less than 3 participants at this time. If you would like to continue, press star 1 now, or the conference will be terminated.
There's a kite in there in the bottom left.
That's excellent ROV nav. We're getting a little drift here. That gives us an idea of what we're looking at. Thank you. And no evidence of bubble escape at all from this area. So we're obviously getting a lot of live mussels in areas where we're not seeing visual escape of bubbles.
And Eric observes that these snails are rare at this depth, mostly known from the upper slope below, so shallower than 1,000 meters. But they co-occur with Bathymodiolus childresi, which I think we are seeing in this bed. You can tell these things from the shell shape, although it's not always a definite science.
Eric, let us know when you've got what you need, and we'll move on to our seep. And we should also let you know that this bed was looked at visually during a dive on Leg 2, and I don't remember the number of the dive. It was towards the end of Leg 2, but there is a lot of video of this particular bed. Gentlemen, we can move on whenever it works for you. RLV Nav, we can move on whenever it works for you. Yeah, those mussels are pretty good specular reflectors for the sonar. There's a fair bit of relief in this mussel bed as well. These mussels were, the comment was made on the dive during Leg 2 that they tend to form along fissures in the seafloor, and we saw some evidence for that when we came down here yesterday. And there were also some scattered carbonate hard grounds here. So there is some outcropping carbonate as well. A physical marker was deployed about 5 meters from this concentrated bubble stream during Leg 2. We found that marker yesterday, and we're close to that marker again today. Yeah, that was my recollection too, is that the marker had been near one of those carbonate hard ground ledges, right? Scanning right, we might see it. Yeah, that's a pretty characteristic looking hard ground ledge and the marker was right on the off side of that ledge, or a ledge that looked like that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I do see some clam shells in there too. Just the dead shells. They're more round.
Getting some staining too on the seafloor, aren't we?
Yeah.
Usually been a pretty good indication of proximal escape of gas. Is that an anemone on the left there, or is that an urchin?
An urchin.
Urchin.
Yep.
Yeah, urchin.
Okay, I think I got something with sonar here. Drive towards the little sonar picture here. This is the ridge, and this might be the bubble.
Yeah, right. It certainly looks to me like you're getting close now. I think that ridge was, one of these ridges is where that marker is. Yeah, there's our stream right in the upper field of view now.
Right. Same crab. Same mussel formation.
So now that we're here, instead of, you also got a trillium on the left page with all the relative headings, because the high top targets are all 10 meters off when we lose traffic.
That crab has not moved in many dives.
Yeah, there must be plenty of food right there, I guess, for this guy. It's interesting because you see the same kinds of crabs wandering around on the seafloor where there isn't anything else. And then this one just stays right there.
Yeah, go ahead with it. See with the swirls. Well, get comfortable. Shall we push into it?
I think sitting down, whatever you're more comfortable with, hovering or sitting, is okay. I think we're going to want to, once we position, and of course we have more flexibility today because we're not trying to avoid bubbles getting into a capture device. We're going to want to look at the straight on and pilot cam view and get a sense of proximity of the stream to the grid. Once we're in the right spot, we're going to want to stay there for at least 5 minutes.
Jamie, that sounds great. The other day we had Sirius kind of line up perpendicularly to the whole experiment. What are the chances of being able to do that again today?
I think we'll just have to, once we get Little Herc set up, we'll see what we can do with Sirius It's always dependent on the amount of ship heave, but we'll do what we can do.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you.
A critical moment.
Video, can we go wide on the CS panel for a moment? Just want to check the tether all the way stopped. Let's go wide. Thank you. Yeah, maybe Zeus wouldn't go down far enough. The tether's below us. Want to find the second football.
Yeah, that looks very nice. Something like that looks very, very nice.
Yeah, that's a beautiful location.
Okay, video, you can zoom again on CS.
Bill, Kevin, let us know if that placement it looks good to you. It looks good to me.
Can you guys there on the beach see the pilot cam? Is that being transmitted? Yeah, okay.
Jamie, this is fantastic. Thank you to the pilots, too. This is great.
ROV Nav, you're getting kudos from the beach. They are very happy with this. So once you're stable, because we see both the lasers on the grid itself, and the bubbles.
It seems like we're torquing around a little bit to starboard. Is there a way to come back toward port and... Oh, they're doing it right now. Perfect.
Yeah, I think our goal here is to try to keep the bubble stream more or less in the middle of the grid and within the lasers. Still stabilizing. Kevin, I've got my stopwatch on now. The way I read Tom's dive plan, you wanted at least 5 minutes here.
Yeah, 5 minutes will give us an amazing set of images here.
Great. I think that's probably the best view of the grid as a whole, and with the bubbles coming up between the lasers. That's a pretty nice view. Yep. Right. Well, that's it. I think that allows them to get a census of how bubble size may change as it rises. I think they can zoom in later.
Jamie, this is Val. It's difficult to tell, and I haven't seen any. We'd want to make sure that there aren't bubbles coming up behind the screen. And I don't know how to gauge that, but if you guys could help us keep an eye maybe on the pilot view. If there were bubbles coming up behind it, we'd want to push the thing back a bit.
We did not. I only saw one stream coming in. I have seen one burst of bubbles to the left, which you caught on the grid. I have not as yet seen any evidence of bubbles in the pilot cam behind. I think occasionally it looks as though they might be behind, but I think they're above and in front.
I agree.
We can certainly do a look before we leave to make sure.
Jamie, this view is fantastic. I don't know how much time we have left in this 5 minutes, but maybe after the 5 minutes are up, if we could stay right where we are and pan the camera down and get a really close shot of the bubbles forming right at the seabed, that would be great. Maybe we can get a minute or so of that footage after these 5 minutes.
Okay. We are now 5 minutes into this view. And ROV Nav, you did hear from the beach that let's give this another minute or two, this view, and then let's pan down and zoom in on the actual escape vent and do a minute or two like that. I'm going to give it another minute and a half, and then I'll let you know. I think that's all right. I think we have the entire grid in view, and I think they're getting what they need. I'm all right. I don't think we were worried too much about a spatially invariant view, but making sure that we could see the entire stream on the grid. Six minutes. One more minute here. Again, I am not seeing any evidence for bubbles behind the grid. I'm looking at the pilot cam pretty consistently and not seeing any evidence. We'll take a good look as we lift off to double check. ROV Nav watch lead, we now have 7 minutes, so you are free to pan down and zoom in. Let's keep a little of the grid visible. Let's pan up just a little bit and get, just a little bit so that we can see a piece of the grid behind. That's a good view right there. Let's give this 2 or 3 minutes.
Yeah, this is fantastic, Jamie. Thank you.
Yep. It's interesting from a biological point of view. You've got mussels living very happily right next to that stream, and then, you know, what's the environment that allows them to live just as happily, you know, meters away? I'm going to give this another minute and a half. Thirty seconds. Very nice view, gentlemen. Kevin, Bill, I've given you about 3 minutes here. Is that all you need?
Yeah, Jamie, I think we've got a really nice set of images here.
Okay.
Bubbles and the source.
Let's ROV nav, watch lead. Let's lift off slowly and convince ourselves that we haven't been missing gas behind the grid before we leave. Created a little disruption there in the biological substrate. But I do not see any other bubble stream here besides the one that was in front of the grid.
Yeah, it looks the same to us too, Jamie. It looks great.
Yeah. All right, gentlemen, at your leisure, we can go for the diffuse area, and we're going to try to do the same thing there, but we may have to do a little looking around first to get a sense of the spatial flows we may be dealing with. Very nice job. It was pretty shell covered, though. Those disseminated bubbles were coming through shell. Yeah, there's the marker off to the right side of the visual field now on Little Herc. I think I'd pan left. I'd go left a little bit. Yeah, this looks suspiciously like the area that we were looking at gas from when we first sat down the other day, yesterday. Might be good to slow down and actually do a zoom here at some point so that we can get a sense. I didn't have a good feeling for bubble escape until we would zoom in a bit on the seafloor. Yeah, I think that's right. I think just to the left center of your field. Yep. There we go. Now we're seeing disseminated bubbles now right in front of Little Herc. Very nice job, gentlemen.
Nice shot.
Seeing bubbles coming up right in front of the camera now for Little Herc. ROV nav, I think that the challenge here will be finding several disseminated streams that we can place in front of the grid. I think we're close to a good spot here. Looks like.
Yeah, Jamie, if we can, let's start here. This looks like a fantastic.
Yeah, I think the beach is letting us know that this is a good spot. So if we can get down close and see what we're looking at. We may want to set down and do a census in one spot and then try a different spot in this general area. I don't think there's going to be a perfect place. We may do a couple.
Yeah, Jamie, I think that's the idea. We want to repeat this process a number of times
Right.
in this diffuse area.
And in each place, ROV nav will want to sit down and do somewhere between 3 and 5 minutes again, as we did the last time. I'll time it. This looks pretty good here, guys. Kevin, Bill, do you want the bubble escape location and the grid as we have it now, or do you want more grid?
I think the idea here is that once we've sat down, we can get a 30 seconds or so or a minute of looking at the seafloor to get an idea of the general distribution of bubbles emanating the seafloor in front of the grid, and then we'll pan up and look at the grid itself for another minute or two.
Okay. ROV nav, I think the idea here would be to look at the bubble escape first, where it's coming out from between shells for a minute or so, and then pan up to the grid and spend another minute or two looking at bubbles crossing the grid. So when you're stable, that's the plan. Roger that.
Yeah, this gives us a really nice picture of how diffuse the bubble sources are.
You've got dead mussel shells there. You've got a snail. You've got a chitin. It's always fascinating when we zoom in on the biology of these seafloors, how diverse the communities are at almost any zoom. That's very good, gentlemen. I've got you at this view for about 30 seconds already. Let's do another 30 seconds or so and then pan up to the grid.
Jamie, when we zoom back out from this view, could we spend 30 seconds with the lasers in sight on the seafloor before we pan up?
Yeah, can we see the lasers at this zoom, or are we too tight? Maybe we can zoom out a bit at this location so that we can see the lasers before panning up to the grid. Is that doable? Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's good. Let's hold that for a minute or so. Yeah, that's an excellent shot. I think that's good. Give this another 30 seconds or so, and then we'll pan up to the grid. Kevin, Bill, let us know when you feel like you've got enough.
This is great. I think we can pan up and look at the grid for a minute or two.
ROV nav, watch lead, you can pan to the grid now when you, at your, yeah, that's great. I think that's good. Let's hold that for about 2 minutes. Roger that. Yeah, let's hold that shot for about 2 minutes now. ROV nav, I think we're going to want to do this location probably at least once more within this field and perhaps twice more.
How,
Let's do 1 more minute of this view, gentlemen. Roger that. Kevin, Bill, is this what you need?
Yeah, Jamie, this is fantastic. Thank you. And thanks for the pilots. This is
Thank you, everyone. We have what we need here. Let's try to find another spot and do it again. I think we want to get a spatial representation of the area, so we want to move at least 2 to 3 meters away, assuming we're allowed to do it by the gas escape here. Certainly seeing bubbles to the left.
what's the problem with that? Now that
Well, that's fine. If you feel as though you can't, we'll look around. I'd like to try to find one other location somewhere in the vicinity. If that's all we can do, that's all we can do.
Jamie, if we can find 2 more spots total, that would be fantastic. And then I have an idea for after repeating this experiment 2 more times, perhaps driving back and forth across the area, looking down slightly with the lasers on. And I think that that might help us get an idea of the area of this diffuse seep site.
Okay.
If we could crisscross it, say 1 or 2 different directions,
Okay.
we might get some kind of outer dimensions.
ROV nav, the beach would like to try to find 2 other spots to do what we just did. And then before we leave the seafloor, we're going to want to try to do a little bit of a mini survey of this disseminated bubble area with the lasers on, looking down, perhaps having Little Herc a little higher off the seafloor so that they can have a sense of what the terrain looks like before we leave. This looks good. This looks pretty good right here. And maybe it's the same spot. Need to spray paint one of these shells. Or
this may be the same location. I noticed there were
yeah,
fish off
I think you may be right.
to have not moved.
Yeah, I think we may be right back where we were. Let's see if we can move a little further afield and convince ourselves that this is not a bigger area. Right. Yeah, Kevin, Bill, the Sirius sector scanning sonar suggests that at the level of Sirius, these bubbles are only a few meters across. So it may not be as big an area as we perhaps thought yesterday. Something to keep in mind. But we will take a look around.
Okay. Great.
There is another area that we're looking at southeast relative to Sirius, and we will give you some more looking before we. We're just on the lookout, ROV nav, for some more bubble streams in this general area. Like to do exactly what we did last time, try to find several disseminated streams, sit over the location, zoom in on the emanation from the seafloor first, and then pan up to the grid.
We think we see some bubbles here.
Here we go. Looks like in the immediate foreground we've got some. I think so, yeah. Yeah, we're probably dealing with gas-charged sediment here, so if we nudge the sediment, we might lose some bubbles just by doing that. I do see a few bubbles off in to the left foreground here. I think this is a potential spot, gentlemen.
Yeah, anywhere in these streams here would be nice.
Yeah, this is a good location for the beach, gentlemen, if you can set up here. I'm confident this is a different location. You think so? Boy, I'm trying to convince myself by looking at the shells, but maybe not. Maybe it's just a different orientation in the same spot. Kevin, Bill, the pilots are not convinced this is a different spot. So you got to take that into potential consideration here. This area may not be as big an area as we thought.
We were having that same debate.
The USBL jumps around a little bit. We haven't moved very far, if we've moved at all. Right. Well, that would certainly be far enough away from the initial location if we... Right, exactly. So... Kevin, Bill, your call. We can try to stabilize here, or we can pull up and look for another spot.
Let's go ahead and repeat that experiment right here. And I think if we do our flyovers after these experiments, we'll get an idea about the aerial extent of the seep location.
ROV nav watch lead. The beach is comfortable with doing another census right here. So when you're stable. Right. Again, the idea would be to zoom in on the actual part of the seafloor where bubbles are escaping once you're stable.
Yeah, Jamie, I think this spot will work just fine.
Roger that. I think once you're stable, gentlemen, this spot will work for us. Well, then let's pan down a bit and zoom in with the lasers. Yeah, we've got some bubbles right in front of us. That would be... Yeah, let's let this sit for a minute or two. I've got the watch on again, stopwatch on again. I think those chitin and those little snails are different than the last time, but don't quote me.
Jamie, my feeling is that it may be my imagination, but this appears to be a little bit less active than the previous site, which makes me think maybe a slightly different site, which would be great.
Yeah, we're certainly seeing the occasional very large bubble coming out here that we didn't see at the other location. I think it looks different to me, but there again, we might just be looking at the same location in a different orientation. That would be the another possibility.
I have not noticed any hydrate formations. Usually they light up pretty well when the lasers cross over them, but haven't seen that yet.
Right. Yeah, we were seeing some hydrate associated with the lips of those carbonate hard grounds yesterday, but you're right. I haven't seen anything here. We are now 2 minutes into this view.
Actually, something that might be interesting to the floor that nobody's picked up on yet. Just to the right of the right-hand laser, you see a broken piece of shell with some white material on it. Looks like it might be microbial.
Yeah, Aaron, you might comment on that. I wouldn't have any idea.
Yeah, video has observed that there is a broken shell just to the right of the right laser that has some white material on it that could possibly be either microbial or some kind of precipitate or hydrate. I'm not really sure. I can't really tell by looking at it from this view what it is. And you can see also kind of towards the center up and down on the left of the screen, there's a bare patch of sediment that has some white stuff on top of it too. And again, I can't really identify what that is, but yeah, I'm not surprised to see it around this area. We've seen some white patches on bare areas of sediment in this general region too.
Our ROV nav, we are 3 minutes into this view. I think you can pan up to the grid now. If you need to zoom out a bit, that's okay. That looks very nice. It looks like we have at least 2 or 3 streams. Yeah, okay, let's get a focus. Yeah, we're going to want to hold this view for 4 or 5 minutes. And I've got it on the watch. I'll let you know.
Yeah, this looks great. Thank you, Jamie. And video.
Roger that. Thank you.
We're locked on this shot, starting the timer.
Oh, that's great. Seeing multiple bubble streams, various sizes, coming up right in front of the grid. I think that's pretty much what we had in mind. Also see a good view from the pilot cam of the spatial representation of multiple streams coming up in front of the grid. That's a great view too. That's a really nice addition to the visuals here, that pilot cam. We are 2 minutes in. I'm going to give you, let's go 3 more minutes. It's just an extraordinary concentration of shells on the seafloor. You can see it in the Sirius camera now. Must be thousands and thousands and thousands of shells.
Jamie, I think our idea here is after a couple more minutes of video, we can lift off and maybe try to find one more site here at this seat and repeat the experiment. If we can't find that, then that's okay. I would still like to attempt doing some sort of flyovers in different directions, looking slightly down with the lasers on, just to get a rough idea for the aerial extent of the seat.
Yeah, it's not clear how well you're going to see bubbles doing your survey that way, but we can give it a try. We are now 3 minutes into a 5-minute view here. Gentlemen, at the end of that time, we will lift off slowly. The beach would like to find one more location to do this at, if possible. Okay. Yeah, I saw that. I still think they'll be able to do a pretty good job of assessing bubble movement in front of the grid. It would have been worse if we'd lost the grid, but we've seen it. So 1 more minute.
Jamie, had you mentioned another seep site altogether that was showing up in the Sirius scanning sonar?
We only saw two general locations that we marked yesterday. One with this diffuse flow where we are now, and the one concentrated bubble stream where we caught bubbles yesterday. We have seen multiple targets in the Sirius sector scanning sonar, but I think given the scatter and the navigation, I think we'd be hard-pressed to prove to ourselves that we've got more than two. Now, we can do some more driving around, but
I don't think we need to unless something very strongly showed up in the scanning sonars. I just wanted to make sure that I understood some of the earlier comments from today's dive.
Roger that. Gentlemen, we are now 5 minutes into this view. I would like to try to find one other location. So when you are ready, we can lift off and take a look around.
Does anyone know how much this mussel bed was explored on the last leg? As in, do we know the extent of it? How big it is?
We did explore quite a bit, and it's very large. Mussels are concentrated. Mussels are highly concentrated along fractures, live mussels, and there's a very wide distribution of shell, tens of meters in all directions.
Tens of meters in all directions. Okay.
Yeah, my recollection of that dive I was on in my office was that they were over mussel shells for a large part of the dive.
Right. I just didn't know if they, you know, looked at the edges, basically.
Yeah, see about
We attempted to
this seems like the bubbles
to find the edges and ran out of tether in all directions and concentrated on following fractures and
Okay.
took quite a bit of video.
So Survey 1 was saying that they attempted to look at the edges in all directions but ran out of tether, so then decided to concentrate in the center, or did you say along the fractures?
We followed fractures, and
Okay.
there's several branching fractures here,
Right.
and one major fracture associated with a ledge of 1/3 of a meter,
Right.
which we've crossed here on this dive once or twice.
maybe figure out a couple meters forward.
I think that's what the beach wants anyway, ROV Nav, is to do some back and forth across this area before we leave to get a sense of the space and the aerial extent of what could be bubble escape in this vicinity. So we could leave that to the end. I am seeing bubbles in your right foreground now. Again, I'm not sure how far you've gone, but I'm if yeah, I'm okay with if you feel that you've moved some discrete. It can be as little as 2 to 3 meters. We can do this one more time.
So Jamie, I think I'm understanding the ROV team is fairly confident that we're in a slightly different location now from the previous two spots.
That's my take, Kevin.
Right. They said they backed up 1.5 meters from where we just were.
Okay, that's fantastic.
Yeah, if you're confident, gentlemen, you can, again, the idea here is to stabilize, look at the bubble escape with the lasers with a pretty close zoom as long as we can see the lasers for a couple of minutes, then come back up and show us the grid for 3 to 5 minutes more. Yeah, there we go. Yep. So if you can get me a zoom near your lasers, I want to hold that for a minute or two. Let's come in a little tighter. Yeah, whoop. A little, roger that. Yeah, that's great. Okay, starting our scan. I'd like to do this for 2 minutes. 1 minute to go. Thirty seconds. That's good, gentlemen. When you're ready, you can pan up to the grid and get your focus, and then we'll hold that for about 5 minutes.
See if they want co-pilot. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that is the concentrated seat because it was pretty much below me. And it shows up 2 meters.
Yeah, that's a great view video. That's fine.
But it's so close we can definitely carry find it one last time.
Yeah, it might be a good idea, ROV Nav. I think we do. The beach wants several passes over this disseminated area, and if we can, it would be nice to fly over the concentrated stream one more time too. Perhaps a little higher, get a feeling for how the bubbles look in the water column before we lift off. This will be a well-visited part of the seafloor.
Yeah, Jamie, that plan sounds great. And I know that we've talked in the past about perhaps trying to ascend with the bubbles and follow a seep as high in the water column as we can. Today might be a good day to try that.
Okay.
Maybe from the
We'll,
seep.
assuming we actually encounter the concentrated stream again, we can give that a try. Two minutes in, 3 minutes to go. Three minutes in, 2 minutes to go.
Do you still see it?
1 minute to go. Okay, gentlemen, that's 5 minutes at your leisure. Let's lift off. And what the beach would like, again, before we leave this area is to do 1 or 2 passes, a visual survey, a little above the seafloor and pan down. Let's see if we can see bubbles here and get a little bit of the aerial extent. And if before we leave, we could hunt up the concentrated bubble stream again. They would like to rise slowly with that stream to get a sense of how far we can see it above the seafloor. Well, we'd like to do a little bit of a survey around the disseminated bubble area first. Pan down a bit so that we can get a sense of perhaps how large it is. I think we already know it's not as big as perhaps we thought initially. But then we ought to try to hunt up that concentrated stream before we leave and rise with it. Get a sense of how it looks in the water column. And then I think we're done here. Very nice work.
So you're saying we stay in this configuration, but he turns 90 degrees and faces the bubbles? Okay. Sounds good.
Do we have a clip from the last cruise where we did that?
No, we've pulled them all off the cache.
That's the idea, gentlemen. If we can just get 1 or 2 passes over this area at this height, you're about 1 meter off. This is a good view of spatially of the bubbles rising in the water column. I think that was the idea.
Well, we haven't looked much.
Lots of bubbles here. Only a few live mussels, though. You can see kind of hanging on there.
Almost makes you wonder whether there isn't too much gas for healthy growth. I'm fascinated by that.
I don't know, but as Bob Carney was saying yesterday, the gas phase is not really biologically accessible to the mussels or their symbionts. They really needed to be dissolved in the water. Maybe it's just coming up through the sediment too fast for it to be accessible to them.
Right.
It could also be maybe why the mussels tend to be crammed underneath carbonate outcrops. Maybe that carbonate kind of blocks the stuff from coming out of the sediment too quickly.
Yeah, very interesting.
Perhaps. I'm not really sure. Oh, wow. Yeah.
You can see some bubbles rising from the seafloor now, right in the vicinity of the lasers. And bubbles rising to the right of the visual field now on Little Herc as well. Certainly is a relative, it looks to me to be a relatively small area where gas is rising actively. Enormous mussel field, but shell field, but
Yeah, Jamie, what we're seeing right now is really helpful in terms of trying to establish the aerial extent of this seep. If there's any way we could move side to side across this field and then maybe change orientation by 90 degrees or so and repeat that, we get two sort of crossings of the field with the lasers on looking down. And the view that we just had of maybe 10 or 15 seconds ago was just about perfect for that.
yeah, ROV nav, the beach would like us to sweep back and forth across this area if possible in one direction, turn and do it more or less orthogonally, but again, sweeping back and forth a little bit like we did over in the Biloxi Dome when we were covering ground looking for seeps.
Your conference contains less than 3 participants at this time. If you would like to continue, press star 1 now, or the conference will be terminated.
Right.
That's right. That's what we're trying to do, is cover a little, mow the lawn a little bit in 2 different directions. And I think this height off the seafloor is pretty good because it allows us, where we see bubbles, to see them pretty well. Yeah, ROV nav, we probably, I see you as being 2 meters off right now. We probably want to get a little lower. Yeah, that's a little better. Thank you. Ideally, they'd like to see streams escaping from this area as we sweep across it. I think we get too high, it's hard to do. That's going to be something we're going to try to do with the concentrated stream, but that's great. It's just an amazing concentration of biology here. Incredible.
Jamie, this kind of motion side to side is exactly what I envisioned. This is great.
I think we just had to do, I had to do a better job of communicating what we wanted to try to do. Dave helped me out here. Not all of the pilot lingo is familiar to me. They're doing a series of laterals now, and I think that's what you had in mind. And that's about the right height off the seafloor, I think, to see what bubbles we're going to see.
Are we looking around for more bubbles right now, or trying to just see the area where the diffuse flow is coming out?
I think we're trying to get both. I think we're looking for more bubbles and trying to see spatially the area that the bubbles exist in.
Okay.
And I think there, you know, as Dave has pointed out, there was a pretty extensive survey of this mussel bed on the last leg. So, Kevin and Bill, you need to know that they did a long dive on these mussels in leg 2, and you're going to want to look at that dive as well. Right. That's something that they can get you and will help you do an assessment in space here.
We watched it, take a quick look at tether cable thing. It's Main Street behind us.
Yes, there's the bubble stream in the backward-looking camera from Little Herc. It's really a wonderful view because it's backlit by the Sirius lights from above. I don't know if we can put that out on the quad. Maybe too late, but it's a wonderful.
We can still see it.
It's a wonderful view of the bubble stream in the background with the tether in the foreground from Little Herc to Sirius. That's a great view. Thanks for pointing that out, RLV-Nav. That's great.
Yeah, it's on there.
That's really great. That's as good a representation of what's creating the acoustic anomalies in our EK60 as you're likely to see.
Yeah, and you can see the marker off to the right of the tether too.
That's right. Shows you in space the difference, the separation between the bubble stream and the marker. Yes.
So in the rear view camera here, we're looking at the concentrated seep.
That's correct.
Yeah, that's right.
That's correct.
Great, thank you. That's a beautiful shot.
If you can do it without confusing what you're trying to do with the survey, that would be a wonderful thing to try. We're going to swing Herc 180 degrees, assuming the tether is not an issue, and see if we can't get that view on the main camera. Either way, whatever works for you, gentlemen, works is fine for us. That was a wonderful view, though. Thanks for pointing that out. And there it is again. You can see those bubbles rising and the marker in the right foreground with the tether in the middle. It's a really great view. It shows how persistent that bubble stream is in space. Yeah, well, Aaron pointed out that at one point we could see the bubble. There's the bubble stream and the marker in one view. That's great. That's great. That is just such an evocative image. And it so underscores why there are acoustic anomalies on the EK60 with a stream like that.
get this complete overview with another shot from the Sirius right from the extreme to get that UHD around tighter. But this very overboard too.
And video, I think the idea here, the last thing we'll do before leaving the seafloor is get back to that stream, look at it again with Herc and with Sirius, and then rise slowly with that stream in proximity to the vehicles. And that's about the right height off the seafloor, I think, to see what bubbles we're going to see.
Are we looking around for more bubbles right now, or trying to just see the area where the diffuse flow is coming out?
I think we're trying to get both. I think we're looking for more bubbles and trying to see spatially the area that the bubbles exist in.
Okay.
And I think there, you know, as Dave has pointed out, there was a pretty extensive survey of this mussel bed on the last leg. So, Kevin and Bill, you need to know that they did a long dive on these mussels in leg 2, and you're going to want to look at that dive as well. Right. That's something that they can get you and will help you do an assessment in space here.
We watched it, take a quick look at tether tube right there. It's landscape behind us.
Yes, there's the bubble stream in the backward-looking camera from Little Herc. It's really a wonderful view because it's backlit by the Sirius lights from above. I don't know if we can put that out on the quad. Maybe too late, but it's a wonderful.
Well, you can still see it.
It's a wonderful view of the bubble stream in the background with the tether in the foreground from Little Herc to Sirius. That's a great view. Thanks for pointing that out, RLV Nav. That's great.
Yeah, it's on there.
That's really great. That's as good a representation of what's creating the acoustic anomalies in our EK60 as you're likely to see.
Yeah, and you can see the marker off to the right of the tether too.
That's right. Shows you in space the difference, the separation between the bubble stream and the marker. Yes.
So in the rear view camera here, we're looking at the concentrated seep.
That's correct.
Yeah, that's right.
That's correct.
Great, thank you. That's a beautiful shot.
If you can do it without confusing what you're trying to do with the survey, that would be a wonderful thing to try. We're going to swing Herc 180 degrees, assuming the tether is not an issue, and see if we can't get that view on the main camera. Either way, whatever works for you, gentlemen, works is fine for us. That was a wonderful view, though. Thanks for pointing that out. And there it is again. You can see those bubbles rising and the marker in the right foreground with the tether in the middle. It's a really great view. It shows how persistent that bubble stream is in space. Yeah, well, Aaron pointed out that at one point we could see the bubble. There's the bubble stream and the marker in one view. That's great. That's great. That is just such an evocative image. And it so underscores why there are acoustic anomalies on the EK60 with a stream like that.
with this fleet, that would be a really nice shot for Sirius flight from the extreme to get that UHD around target. But this really overboard too.
And video, I think the idea here is the last thing we'll do before leaving the seafloor is get back to that stream, look at it again with Herc and with Sirius, and then rise slowly with that stream in proximity to the vehicles. And that's about the right height off the seafloor, I think, to see what bubbles we're going to see.
Are we looking around for more bubbles right now, or trying to just see the area where the diffuse
I think
flow
we're
is coming
trying to
out?
get both. I think we're looking for more bubbles and trying to see spatially the area that the bubbles exist in.
Okay.
And I think there, you know, as Dave has pointed out, there was a pretty extensive survey of this mussel bed on the last leg. So, Kevin and Bill, you need to know that they did a long dive on these mussels in leg 2, and you're going to want to look at that dive as well. Right. That's something that they can get you and will help you do an assessment in space here.
They wanted to take a quick look at tether trim up there. It's landscape behind us.
Yes, there's the bubble stream in the backward-looking camera from Little Herc. It's really a wonderful view because it's backlit by the Sirius lights from above. I don't know if we can put that out on the quad. Maybe too late, but it's a wonderful.
We can still see it.
It's a wonderful view of the bubble stream in the background with the tether in the foreground from Little Herc to Sirius. That's a great view. Thanks for pointing that out, RLV-Nav. That's great.
Yeah, it's on there.
That's really great. That's as good a representation of what's creating the acoustic anomalies in our EK60 as you're likely to see.
Yeah, and you can see the marker off to the right of the tether too.
That's right. Shows you in space the difference, the separation between the bubble stream and the marker. Yes.
So in the rear view camera here, we're looking at the concentrated seep.
That's correct.
Yeah, that's right.
That's correct.
Great, thank you. That's a beautiful shot.
If you can do it without confusing what you're trying to do with the survey, that would be a wonderful thing to try. We're going to swing Herc 180 degrees, assuming the tether is not an issue, and see if we can't get that view on the main camera. Either way, whatever works for you, gentlemen, is fine for us. That was a wonderful view, though. Thanks for pointing that out. And there it is again. You can see those bubbles rising and the marker in the right foreground with the tether in the middle. It's a really great view. It shows how persistent that bubble stream is in space. Yeah, well, Aaron pointed out that at one point we could see the bubble. There's the bubble stream and the marker in one view. That's great. That's great. That is just such an evocative image. And it so underscores why there are acoustic anomalies on the EK60 with a stream like that. And video, I think the idea here, the last thing we'll do before leaving the seafloor is get back to that stream, look at it again with Herc and with Sirius, and then rise slowly with that stream in proximity to the vehicles.
Are we looking around for more bubbles right now, or trying to just see the area where the diffuse
I think
flow
we're
is coming
trying to
out?
get both. I think we're looking for more bubbles and trying to see spatially the area that the bubbles exist in.
Okay.
And I think there, you know, as Dave has pointed out, there was a pretty extensive survey of this mussel bed on the last leg. So, Kevin and Bill, you need to know that they did a long dive on these mussels in leg 2, and you're going to want to look at that dive as well. Right. That's something that they can get you and will help you do an assessment in space here. Yes, there's the bubble stream in the backward-looking camera from Little Herc. It's really a wonderful view because it's backlit by the Sirius lights from above. I don't know if we can put that out on the quad. Maybe too late, but it's a wonderful.
We can still see it.
It's a wonderful view of the bubble stream in the background with the tether in the foreground from Little Herc to Sirius. That's a great view. Thanks for pointing that out, RLV Nav. That's great.
Yeah, it's on there.
That's really great. That's as good a representation of what's creating the acoustic anomalies in our EK60 as you're likely to see.
Yeah, and you can see the marker off to the right of the tether too.
That's right. Shows you in space the difference, the separation between the bubble stream and the marker. Yes.
So in the rear view camera here, we're looking at the concentrated seep.
That's correct.
Yeah, that's right.
That's correct.
Great, thank you. That's a beautiful shot.
I'm if you can do it without confusing what you're trying to do with the survey, that would be a wonderful thing to try. We're going to swing Herc 180 degrees, assuming the tether is not an issue, and see if we can't get that view on the main camera. Either way, whatever works for you, gentlemen, works is fine for us. That was a wonderful view, though. Thanks for pointing that out. Certainly the fact that Sirius lights were coming down from above helped us see it and the marker.
Yeah, we're seeing bubbles now. This may be it. The diffuse site over the top.
That's generally the idea, though, gentlemen, is to do this. Get some spatial coverage, see where, in fact, we are seeing bubble escape and where we aren't. Without actually making a ship move. We don't want to cover too much ground because we know this mussel bed is very large. There we go. Got bubbles right in the foreground now. Very nice. I've seen that carbonate hard ground before, that ledge. Right in the lasers there now. Some of those ledges seem highly encrusted with living mussels, some do not. And some of these shells are partially buried and some are not, so it's clear that some of this terrain is older, some is younger. Been a seep area, it's been an area of biological concentration for some time. Some of these shells are partially buried. Yeah, I think we weren't, I think our impression yesterday is that we were in a wide area of diffuse gas dissemination, but I don't think the area is that big. But this is good. This is what they wanted to do. So this is I think this is a good thing for us to accomplish. Certainly the fact that Sirius lights were coming down from above helped us see it and the marker.
Yeah, we're seeing bubbles now. This may be it. The diffuse site over the top.
So you're just passing the western edge of the bubbles. Just pass chippingly over it.
That's generally the idea, though, gentlemen, is to do this. Get some spatial coverage, see where, in fact, we are seeing bubble escape and where we aren't. Without actually making a ship move. We don't want to cover too much ground because we know this mussel bed is very large. There we go. Got bubbles right in the foreground now. Very nice. I've seen that carbonate hard ground before, that ledge. Right in the lasers there now. Some of those ledges seem highly encrusted with living mussels, some do not. And some of these shells are partially buried and some are not, so it's clear that some of this terrain is older, some is younger. Been a seep area, it's been an area of biological concentration for some time. Some of these shells are partially buried. Yeah, I think we weren't, I think our impression yesterday is that we were in a wide area of diffuse gas dissemination, but I don't think the area is that big. But this is good. This is what they wanted to do, so this is I think this is a good thing for us to accomplish. Also gives a full appreciation for how extensive this this biological assemblage is. Some parts of the mussels are living, large parts are not. ROV nav, this is watch lead. We have some deterioration in conditions potentially topside, so we're going to limit this to about 20 more minutes, which means that we want to finish this survey and get back to the stream and identify it and then rise to the surface within about 20 minutes from right now. Bubble stream is right below the grid now, right in the immediate center foreground. Getting the vehicle stabilized to try to rise with that stream now, with the stream in view from both Little Herc in the near field and Sirius in the far field. It requires a little thinking about how we're going to rise. That's fantastic. It's a really nice view from Sirius now.
That's beautiful.
That's great. You can see the bubbles now in the Sirius view. It's wonderful. They seem suspended in space. They don't even seem like they're rising.
Just go forward a little.
You're doing as best you can with those weird mounted there.
Yeah, Delta's 15. Coming up 7 meters per minute. Forward and to the right.
That's great. Wonderful.
So we want that. Delta's still 14.
I think the idea here, ROV nav, is to rise slowly until we can no longer see them, and then we are going to want to get to the surface.
You're pretty much below me now, so you gotta be careful of our Delta. Yeah, video, can you zoom out a bit on Sirius? Forward and right. Come on, front me. Forward and right.
There are a few still sneaking up in front of the grid. Right. I'm sure this plume is getting pretty spread out here.
Please come wide on Sirius. Just a few big waves coming through. Yeah. I don't think we're going to see a concentrated stream. Sirius. Forward and left. Forward and left. So back there. Forward. Open them out a little. To the right here. The delta's increased to 18.
I don't see them anymore. Doesn't?
No.
You got some over here to the right.
Oh yeah, I do see a few. Yeah,
Okay.
thank you very much, ROV nav. I do see them. Yep. Well, let's try to keep them in view as long as we can, and
There we go.
we're now about 20 meters above. Well, 40 off bottom with Sirius, 20 off with Little Herc.
Delta's 20. Pausing. Yeah. Just till we get to 15 or so.
So the bubbles are still going faster. It'd be cool if we could go at the same rate and follow the same bubble all the way up.
Okay, there you go.
Indeed. Yeah.
Yeah, there's one rising right in front of the grid right now.
Very interesting to look at the rise rate of the ROVs and the relative rise rates of the bubbles and
Yeah,
natural rise rates.
I mean, it's great. You're still seeing a fair number of bubbles rising right in front of the grid. It's wonderful. I think that's an well, I don't know.
That's just because you expect them to do that. I don't know.
At this depth, at 1,100 meters, that the
Yeah.
pressure differential from bottom to top of the grid's not significant. But we are seeing a lot of bubbles right in front. That's great.
That's a good question. I mean, there is certainly, you know, they're moving at different rates, and it doesn't seem to necessarily be correlated with their size. Some of the small ones are fast, some of the big ones are fast.
It might have to do with the amount of higher chain hydrocarbons there are around the bubble, how slick they are. Some are vibrating a lot more than others too. You can see that. That's fascinating.
Do you think having the hydrocarbons around the side would make them faster?
Less surface friction with the surrounding water. I don't know. I don't know that I've ever read anything about it.
True. Right. Yeah, there's certainly some that are coming off of the frame, it looks like now. Right there.
I think, gentlemen, once we have a group sense that we're not seeing them anymore, we're going to want to get to the surface expeditiously is the best term I can use. There's one.
Where did it come from, though?
Well, I'm still seeing a few rising past on either side of the grid. It's an excellent job, gentlemen. We're in the stream. But Ernest Hemingway wrote a book called Islands in the Stream. These are bubbles in the stream. That's, she looks remarkably inconsequential at that video range, doesn't she? I am not seeing any other bubbles now.
Me neither. Are they still visible on the sonar?
It's going to take a little look at that.
Yeah. So yes, the answer to that question.
We are still seeing evidence for the bubble escape stream on the sector scanning sonar for Sirius. We have lost track of them in the near field with Little Herc. Although once you start looking for these bubbles, you can convince yourself occasionally that you're actually seeing one. Gentlemen, I think thank you very much for an excellent job. But I think we can head for the surface.
Yes, big thanks from CCOM to the pilots and the video team. This is fantastic.